Hello, I want to talk today about, it's a meaty one today, or as a vegan I should say, jackfruity one today. I want to talk about triggers, because I talk about in, a lot of my videos and in my posts and things, I talk about how we need to accept that we have triggers and that our children are effectively through their behaviour, which they are acting out, they are living just through their existence. Another child steals their toy, they are acting from a place of hurt. They shout at us, or they hit us, or they hit another person, like their brother or their sister, and it triggers us. So their behaviour is actually, in some ways, inextricably linked and also separate to our triggers. The point being, and the point of a lot of my work, well, the real crux of my work, is that the way that we react to a situation going on, a child hitting another child, a child shouting at another child when their toy has been stolen, it's not actually us reacting to the situation in front of us. Most of the time, it's us reacting to the way that we have been triggered by the child's behaviour or the children's behaviour in front of us. And I think it would be really useful for some people who maybe they're watching my videos and thinking, yeah, I think I kind of get that, but I don't. Can you give me a bit more information? And so yes, I can. I'm doing it right now. So I want to give you some examples of triggers. So what we were just saying about the child being, one child hitting another child because they stole their toy, and a mom or a dad coming in and just, I say massively overreacting, but what I mean is making a big action, and instead of being able to sit back and say, oh, I see that you're very upset, I see that your toy has been taken, and I see that you're hitting, and then we solve the problem, which is another one of those things that I do with the people who work with me on my 6-week program. Around week 4 or 5, we start talking about these strategies that we can use with children. So these are practical strategies that we are not in the emotional place to put into action when we, as the adults, are reacting from our own place of hurt because the child's behaviour has triggered our memories. Here's when I'm talking about the triggers, our memories of times when our brother unfairly hit us around the head, or maybe we are remembering, it's triggering, the behaviour in front of us is triggering that really raw wound we have from, like 30 years ago, that we have still carried from the way that, my brother, not literally my brother, if you're watching this, boys, but, my brother used to hit me as a kid. And when I told my mom, she just said, oh, well, you must have done something first. You must have done something to deserve it, and then fobbed it off. Or, my sister used to say really nasty things when my mom wasn't there. And whenever I told my mom, she told me to grow up and stop being so manipulative, or something like that. That is what I mean by a trigger. So then when our kids, or even some other kids at playgroup, somebody else's kid hits our kid around the head, and we're like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. This is us behaving from a point of our own long-term wound from our childhood. And although we can acknowledge in our adulthood, maybe my brother who hit me regularly, actually it turns out when I was 6 I didn't understand autism, and now I'm an adult, I know that he couldn't control himself, and I understand that. But you still have a right to be hurt by it, and your child self still has a right, or had a right, to be hurt from it. And you also, as an adult now, you have a right to be free from that hurt. And it doesn't mean that you're disrespecting your mom, who you felt as a child didn't respond properly, or your autistic brother who hit you because he couldn't cope with his behaviour. You're not being disrespectful by healing your own wounds. In fact, they don't even need to know that you've done it. But you don't need to You don't need to suffer with these triggers. And this is the people I work with, which is basically everybody. Everybody who is parenting or working with young people would absolutely benefit from this. So I've got a little list here, which is why I'm looking over here. I've got a little list of other reasons, because I think it really does help to have some things where we go, oh yeah, that one's me. Oh yes, I recognize that one. So the need, the trigger of seeing our children suffer with the need for acceptance. So perhaps they fell out with their best friend and they have been frozen out of a group and they're struggling to deal with this, how to move forward in their own friendship. This is part of life for a child, and it's part of our jobs as parents to support them in moving forward with their friendships. And sometimes that actually means that we back off, and sometimes it means we get involved, and this is part of the parenting job, is to work it out. But if their lack of acceptance, or maybe they're being bullied, if that's triggering our feelings when we were wounded as a child because we weren't accepted, we weren't part of the group, we didn't get invited to that party, we were bullied ourselves, maybe we were the bullies, and it's just hitting us right now how awful it was for that person because it's our son or our daughter on the receiving end of it. This is triggering us to not be able to show up as parents in the way that our children need. So we're not meeting their needs, and maybe we're freezing them out, maybe we are completely dissociating because it's just too painful right now, or maybe we're shouting, maybe we've actually gone and said something to a parent and we probably shouldn't have. Maybe our child is being caught or found to be bullying somebody and we've just flipped our lid at them. And that's not what they need. And as a conscious parent, our job is to be thinking, okay, I need to find out a way to deal with my own stuff so that I can actually work out what my child needs and support them. And I also do on my program, after we've done our own, releasing the triggers, we then move on to how best to support our children. So don't worry about that. Things like the need for fairness. If, that example I was just saying before about, my brother was hitting me constantly and my mum always took his side. And maybe in retrospect, as an adult, you can look back and say, oh, I understand why now. It's irrelevant because you're still triggered by it, because you were still that child who wasn't treated as you perceived fairly. And maybe you weren't treated fairly, and maybe that was because your dad was really tired and didn't have the ability to deal with it. Maybe you didn't know that your auntie at that age of life, that your auntie was sick and wasn't able to cope with it. All these kind of things, and that's fine, but you are still allowed to be triggered by it, and you are allowed to seek support to be healed from it. Other ones are the need to be right and the need to be heard. That shows up in our kids like, listen to me, when we weren't heard as kids. That one's kind of more of an easy to see direct one. The people pleasers. If you were socialized to be a people pleaser and to be a good little girl or a good little boy, it's quite common with girls. If you were socialized to not rock the boat, if you were asked to be quiet all the time, you might be struggling to advocate for your child's needs when they actually need some support with their homeschooling, and then you might be triggered to have an anxious response to that. I also have comfort. If you needed comfort when you were a child and you didn't get it, and then your child comes to you and they're like, Mom, I need you all the time, that can trigger us. There's actually loads more, but I think hopefully that would give you a bit of an elaboration and a bit more understanding of the work that I do. So working out the triggers with you, teaching you ways, really powerful ways where you can release these triggers and these old hurts so you can move on. And then the next time your child presents you with the behaviour that would usually trigger you, you suddenly find that you're able to just, first thought is, oh man, you're really hurting. What can we do? It's powerful. It's life-changing. It's world-changing. And if you want to be part of it, send me a message and I'll do some more videos in the future about it. Okay, thank you. Bye.